Why did I come over here? I knew it was trouble when they invited me over here.
I'm cleaning it up right now.
Oh, you got
It's too late. He's been recording the whole time. He just didn't tell you.
Nobody smiled. This is serious
Better not
now.
have been
Now he's going to blackmail you now.
What's he gonna blackmail me for? That's real easy. If he wants to blackmail, that's way too easy.
All right, so it's rolling.
What do you mean it's rolling? Was it rolling before?
Yeah, it's rolling.
It was
What?
not.
That was part of the best part.
Oh, stop.
I had it rolling before. That's how you get the best stuff before and after.
He is sneaky. He's good.
See, he just thought it wasn't working.
So what do you want us to talk about, son?
Well, I mean, I thought it would be interesting because, well, and then you have the 50-year thing, but just talk something about coming up here for.
So it is rolling.
Years,
Okay.
and then maybe like best and worst.
There's just too many best and worst.
Yeah, it's, what, 40 years? 40-some years? Is that
I would
right?
estimate 40 plus, yeah. I mean, we were in college still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I graduated in 77, so.
Welcome to
Had to be good
Strato
70s.
Strato This Week. With me today is my friend Ed Hatch, friend Jimmy Ange, and your host Johnny Jones. We're here to share our first blog on our memories of our trip to Shenandoah. We may do some more things before it's over.
Yes.
Ed.
It may be inspired.
Softball
If
days
we're not
with us.
arrested or something.
Anyway, just a quick history. I went to high school with these two guys, and I know I had Jimmy in a chemistry class, and I had Ed in an English class. And I don't think either one of us went those directions, but hey, got to know each other a little bit before we played on probably the best softball team in the state of Virginia for years.
In our own mind, anyway.
At least for one weekend against Surrey.
Yeah.
And anyway, so again, Ed, when do you remember coming up here first time?
Well, your dad had bought that place just outside of Shenandoah, little town of Shenandoah. And it was, looking back, it was kind of a life-altering event for me. We've been coming up here for so long and able to do a lot of paintings from this area and meet so many neat people. But we were so fortunate your dad bought that lot. It really changed my life a lot. But that was the first time. 1974, something like that, maybe?
I think the history was I had an uncle, Willie and Margaret, that owned that lot, and they told us we could come up and camp on it. And the second biggest thing I remember about that, you brought a camera from your camera club.
That's right.
From ODU.
Yeah.
And that's when I got fascinated about playing with the camera. We did a lot of crazy
Silly
stuff.
stuff. Sitting on the bridge until like we're driving
we
a car,
did.
sitting like this on
I
the
can't
bridge.
imagine why we did so many silly things, but you were pretty immature, and I kind of
Yeah.
went along
Well, that's
with,
why I got along
with
so
some
well.
of that. Anyway, so eventually we brought our buddy Jimmy up here. Do you remember your first trip?
My first trip when I came up, I think your dad had bought the lot, or maybe he hadn't, I'm not sure, but all that was on there, the thing I remember was this little small, like 8-foot square utility shed. And it was a big field. Of course, now you go up there, there's trees everywhere, but at that time it was a big field out in front of it, and you kind of drove back off this road across the lot to the river, and there's this little utility shed, and then it dropped off to the river, and just remember, boy, this is cool. This is really great. The river's, I'm not used to seeing water like this, because again, I grew up down in Hopewell, and I'd go fishing a lot then, but it'd always be towards the ocean, that type of stuff, and the water's always murky or whatever, and I came up here and I looked down and go, hey, you can see right through this water. What kind of place is this? And it was just so different. It was beautiful to me. And so we went fishing a little bit just from the shoreline, but started wading out, and of course, just spending time together. I mean, cooking up there, and of course, I guess one of the crazy stories, I remember one on trip, Ed's gonna make us a stew or whatever, and the idea is you bury this Dutch oven in the ground and put coals on it. When you come back at the end of the day, it's all done.
It was a rainy day.
Well, it was a cold, rainy day. We came back at the end of the day.
Yes. I said, don't worry about this. I got the meal covered. It's a great idea. I read about it. Dug a hole in the ground, put the Dutch oven in there, and put all the raw meat and potatoes and carrots for the stew. This is going to be delicious when we get back in about 8-10 hours. Put the coals in there, covered up with dirt like the instructions said. We drove off, came back, it was just a pile of, it was just cold dirt. Nothing. We had nothing to eat.
We
They
had
never
raw
let me-
meat
40
and,
years later, they still remind me about that.
but I tell you, I did find out you can cook a stew real fast if you get a fire that's about 4 foot high. Because we took a Dutch oven then and just put it under this great big fire. I mean, yeah, we got to eat, guys. We're starved.
Well, Jimmy's got a camper now with a microwave, so we've come a long way.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's kind of my first memory. That probably wasn't the first trip, but I remember being up here and I remember
Well, at
being
some
in a
point-
couple of thunderstorms. We're
Yeah.
getting in that tin shed. I go, and was that really the smartest idea?
Well, I'd probably been up a few times. I don't know, but we finally decided we wanted to float the river, and so we came up and who are we? Both y'all with me on that? Both y'all were there, right? So
Yeah.
it was y'all. And we had George Stathis
Yeah,
with
it's had a
us.
John boat.
And we had found Charlie Hunter had found a john boat in a swamp somewhere, and so we had this john boat, and Ed had a canoe, and so we thought we could float the river from where my dad's cabin to actually to this campground
Yeah.
almost. And so we had this big plan, and so anyway, all I remember is the first rapid, George Stathis screaming, "We're gonna die, we're gonna die!" You know, and we had no idea. I had never floated whitewater rivers, and we would scout the rivers out for 15 minutes before we even go through a rapid. Now we could probably do them back ways and not even worry about it, but. Yeah, we were way over worried about flipping boats and stuff.
Had to portage the dam, carried John boat around the dam.
Well, anyway,
Didn't know it was
the
there.
long story short, they can finish. I'll let them finish the story of that float.
Oh, well, we thought we'd switch halfway down. Because we didn't know where halfway was. It wasn't very far of a drive.
We didn't know how
so
far
the river,
it was up,
The river
period.
couldn't be much further because we didn't really know the river made all these horseshoe turns and all this stuff. So I think I had the canoe. George and I had the canoe the first, what we thought was half. We switched over, let Johnny and of course Johnny and Jimmy had the John boat when there was current, and
We had to do the rapids though.
yeah,
Okay.
And so when George and I got it, we had a lot of backwater, had a portage around the dam, and of course Johnny and Jimmy they didn't care about us; they just went off. And us. We still do that. I'll fend for yourself. That's the rule. That's the rule up here.
All I remember is that because we hit that flatwater section for the dam up here, we had no idea we were going to hit that.
Yeah.
And we were floating along. We were starving. I mean, it was getting close to dusk, and we had no idea how far we had to go. And people were cooking hamburgers in their grill. It was a campground up there at the time. And everybody's out there cooking food. We were floating by starving to it because we had eaten all our food way back. And it was just, it was a real learning experience of how far you could go, which you should do in one day So from that day on, we looked at more like 7 or 8 miles on the river and enjoy our day instead of rushing through
Yeah.
a 13 or 14 mile float. But yeah, that was a real, but again, that john boat would hit a rock and just stop dead in the middle of a rapid. I don't know what we were thinking about. And we had plastic paddle in that sucker too. Anyway, but that john boat didn't make too many trips down the
No.
river, but
No, but one of the things I remember about that trip, because we had no clue how far we were going on the river. I mean, like I said, it didn't seem that far when you drove it. And I remember we run into people on the river a number of times, and we said, well, how far is it to Kite Store? Well, it's like at 11, 12 o'clock at night. Oh, it's about 2 miles down the river. We can go float and keep going. We run into somebody. How far is it to Kite Store? Oh, it's about 2 miles down the river. And I kept going, it's about 2 miles down the river about 4 or 5 times, and you're kind of like, gee, I've been on the river 4 hours since it originally said that. How far is it? And that was part of the thing, I think, at the end. We're like, I have no idea where the end is at. We portaged the dam going, I don't know how much farther I have to go.
yeah.
And that's why Ed's going like, well, we didn't wait for him. It's going like,
It was just 2 more miles to go.
hey, look, he can do 2 miles. It's no problem.
Yeah.
That was our beginnings up here. I guess the year would have been somewhere around 78, 79, possibly.
Or earlier.
Maybe
Well, I had
maybe
no-
77.
No, I graduated ODU in 1977.
Yeah,
so it was earlier.
It was probably around there.
75,
because,
76 maybe.
yeah, I guess it was my last year at Bland. We came up the first time, but it's been a great time up here, and obviously the time has flown by.
Introduced a lot of kids to camping and fishing up here, which is
Yeah,
good.
we have. And like I say, his dad ended up selling that lot a few years later, but we're at Riverside Campground now, which is owned by Mr. Price. Now his son Stan owns it and runs it, but he started coming here about 45 years ago, camping in various lots in the campground and stuff. And the one we're sitting here now and the one next to us, we probably spent the most time at.
Well, I've yet to bring my grandkids up here. They're young, and hopefully next year, or maybe later this year might be the first time. I look forward to that. Jimmy raised his grandkids up here almost. They've been up here so
At
much.
least my oldest one, she's been up a number of times, and like I said, she goes down to kayak by herself. Of course, she just graduated high school now, so I'm an old guy. Yeah, I got 3 kids. They've all started coming up here. I remember when my oldest 2 were, I'd have me, my wife, and both kids in a canoe heading down the river. And it was always amazing how I couldn't paddle back then because my wife told me I didn't know what I was doing, but somehow or another we made it.
Yes.
We might want to cut that segment of the program, Daniel.
Why?
We don't really want to get into those moments on the river. I don't think my wife ever floated this river. I don't think Debbie ever floated it.
I know she did Craig's Creek
Yeah,
once.
Craig's Creek. Yeah, that was
That
nice.
might have
That was
cured
a
it.
nice. Yeah, it was a cure. Yeah.
I don't know if it was Rebecca or Sarah. She was up here camping, and she was so small we gave her a bath in a cooler. But where are you going, Daniel?
We're still
Run
talking to
away.
the camera. Hey, we don't know what to say
Our producer
now.
just ran off. He buggered off.
Yeah. Well, in the early days, a lot of times the Swedish bikini team would come up here and join us. That was always fun.
And Johnny has lots of dreams. And a great imagination.
Yeah, but that was the guy. It was the guy bikini team. It wasn't the girl. Y'all really mistake things I say.
Well, one thing that's very enduring about Johnny, he asked us to come up here, organizes the trip. So we all, we arrange our schedule to come up here and socialize. And Johnny likes to go on a campground, talk to other people while we're here.
It ignores us the whole trip.
Johnny,
Well, after you listen to these guys for a little while, you'll know why I do.
Yeah, you're ready to turn this off already, aren't you?
So what about best single memory on the river at any given time?
Is this the best memories or most memorable? Because that will definitely be different.
Best memories, yeah.
We'll go with the best one first.
I'm gonna start with something at least. I never forget because when we first came up here, we camped at the campsite where my dad was. So there was a cabin, and my dad eventually bought a little pop-up camper. But I would catching fish worth a hoot. And I remember some guy came across the river and fished out there in the surf. And I think that's where we came up with these Mr. Twisters to use for bait. And it just kind of changed the game because unless you had like Hilgramites or Mad Toms or salamanders or something like that, it was tough. We couldn't figure out how to catch fish. We would watch other people with live stuff catch them, but we started using Mr. Twisters, and suddenly we were catching fish like crazy. And again, it was just kind of made the experience a whole lot more fun and something to do. But that's kind of my memory of the kind of a turning point for us coming up here so much, was the ability to start really catching smallmouth and brim and stuff. So, and then these guys actually became really good at it.
No, it's just a river here. It's easy. I say, hey, are you a good fisherman? No, but if I go to Shenandoah, I can catch fish there.
So I guess I go back to my first memory is the thought that you could catch, not even fish half a day and catch 75 smallmouth or something. It was just crazy. Because you'd lose count. I'd always lose count in the 70s or 80s. And so, or else you just got tired of throwing. But that'd be one of my memories that, not necessarily a single memory, but just a realization of just what a great river the Shenandoah River is for all kinds of things, playing in, fishing in,
Yeah.
just beauty.
yeah. The river is the purpose for coming up here, but it's so much more than that. It's the, of course, the socialization and just staying in touch with friends and reconnecting and bringing the family and extended friends in and sharing the experiences with that. So that's just all part of the experience of Shenandoah that we've been so fortunate for all of us, really.
And we've had a lot of friends come up this way, and family, as we've talked about before. But it's a lot of different things. We've had groups up here. Of course, it's been just the two of us or a couple of us at times, but we've had 35, 40 people on a weekend at times. And
Yeah, on this site, we used to really get a big crowd.
Yeah. Of course, also part of the fun of it is realizing that your friends might pick on you. There's one time I'm thinking here in the campground, Jimmy had fallen asleep during the day in his tent, so we thought it would be a good idea to put some empty beer can. We found some empty beer cans or something in the trash can and laid it all around Jimmy and maybe some appropriate magazines, perhaps. I'm not sure what it was. Anyway, trying to spice up. Of course, Jimmy was perfectly oblivious to all of this, but we thought it was great fun. And, so
and I woke up going, what's wrong? Everything's normal, right?
Yeah, we have
It's different.
and you always use things like that for future blackmailing.
We have a
purposes.
video somewhere
Yes.
where, we're looking at Jimmy just appalled that he's drunk there at the campsite. Well, we had this family camp out, and he's laid in the tent all passed out drunk. But that'd be the last thing he was doing. But anyway,
Yeah, of
that
course.
yeah,
That's
you
what's
had
so
to
funny.
guard yourself a little bit, unfortunately.
The other thing you have to guard yourself, that story, everybody in the campground will know about it because Johnny's going to go around telling them.
Yeah, you want to get into the fish hook in your head?
Oh.
Because that's one of the better memories,
Oh, yeah, I forgot
obviously.
about that.
But so I'll take you to this part. Jimmy was fishing, and next thing I guess he had jerked his lure. Back in those days, somebody would use those treble hooks on some of these lures, and I guess Jimmy either didn't have his hat on or whatever. But anyway, that lure came back. It caught him in the head, and I guess the barb had hung up in there. So I guess Ed was with us. It's just the three of us.
I was
think.
close by, yeah.
And I'll let them take the story from that on because.
What had happened? I hadn't got hurt. Actually, I had a fish on the line. He jumped up out of the water and threw the lure. Well, that means I've got this real limber pole. It's like whipping it. So all of a sudden, I have a lure coming right back at my head. Well, I ducked, but I didn't duck far enough. And so ended up, went to the hospital.
Well,
and
you started feeling lightheaded because the lure was hanging off your head, and you kept fishing. I think.
And we
Yeah,
were
you know-
jerking on it.
Yeah, we jerked on it. And,
Well, I had
Daggone
them trying to
things not
take it
coming
out.
out of
yeah,
here.
but he hit his knee, so his head would hurt so much.
I was doing okay till I was in there, and Ed had a razor blade,
Yeah,
and it's
trying
going
to
like,
cut it
how are
out.
you feeling? Well, let's see, there's a guy with a razor blade on my head, and I've got a fish hook in it. I'm probably not feeling real great right this minute.
Yeah. I think
Took
we
him to
got
the
off at
emergency room.
we got off at the bridge at 3:40, I think, and he went up, and I don't know how we got both boats back to the camp. Takeout, I guess.
I would on this particular trip, but y'all took shelter under the bridge during a storm, and lightning hit the bridge that you were
I
on.
wasn't at that one.
That was Greg Bartlett.
Yeah,
Greg Barlow. Okay.
But anyway, so basically, Jimmy comes back to the campground later, and I guess what he's referring to is that everybody at the campground is coming, how's your head, man?
Yeah, I was going
I don't know
like,
how they found out that
I don't know how they did
fish
it.
hook stuck in his head.
I don't know how they found out either. The three of us were on the trip, and Ed was with me at the emergency room, so I don't know how they found
how
out.
word got out. It must be somebody at that hospital in Harrisonburg
Yeah, must
that
have-
somehow was reporting what was going on.
And I walk up to the store to get a drink, and I go, oh, you're the one with the fish hook in your head. How you doing? Oh, gee.
That daggone Ed, he talks and talks and talks. Yeah,
Well, that does remind me of another. So I'm usually one of the last boats to put in up in town. And so anyway, we had this particular day, we had a lot of boats going in, and our producer, Daniel, Johnny's son, got into a boat with his friend. And at that time, Daniel had a Weimaraner. And so I said to somebody else, I said, that boat right there, that's going to be the entertainment for today. And so anyway, not 200 yards, I think, downriver, somebody on another boat said, hey, nice dog you got there. And the dog went, whoa, like that, flipped the boat over, I believe. So anyway, just
Was Robert
little
with
things
you?
like little
I
things
know
like
Robert
that.
was with him on that boat, but Robert was like this 300-pound guy. They were probably going to flip a few times anyway. So I think I ended up taking the dog, and we went up to the little road, and I said, y'all going down river. Robert can take one by himself or something.
You walk back to the car.
I
then
walked
you-
back to the car with the dog. I knew that was going to be a long day watching him flow. But there's a place we like to stop and take newcomers and kids, and there's a little cave. Some guy had tried to build a tunnel all the way to the other side of the mountain on the Massanuttons. I think he had some cattle over there. He thought he could get more water to them or something, but he'd never got completed it. So we were over there, and so one day I was doing that. I came out, and Ed had floated along with us, but Ed was sitting in the river. And I'm like, you okay, Ed? He goes, No, not really. I'll let Ed finish the rest of this story.
This is what friends are for.
This is a story we've been leading up
Friends are
to.
for. My fish hook. He started the one about my fish hook. Now he's starting this about it.
Yeah,
This is
so-
what friends are for.
Yeah, so you learn as you do things in life. You learn how to take care of situations, and from this situation, I've learned to carry toilet paper and to canoe at all times. So that particular day, obviously, I did not have the TP. So as nature called, and I couldn't wait much longer. So I'm in this, sort of like the supermarkets today when you're looking for toilet paper. There are none. There's none out in the super. So I'm looking around for large leaves to take care of the job. And so anyway, I found an assortment of some, and well, it was fine until about maybe 20, 30 seconds afterwards. I started feeling results of my selection of the leaf. And so it was sort of like maybe hot Tabasco sauce and sandpaper, I would say, with appropriate description. And so my first idea was to get back to the rivers as soon as, so I've got my bathing suit down around my ankles, and I'm trying to make my way out to the river to find some relief. Well, anyway, there was a group floating down, mostly women, real slow like. I'm on my stomach, crawling through the rocks. So it took about 20 minutes before I was able to recuperate from that, and that's when Johnny passed by. I said, "Hey, are you okay sitting in the river like that?" Yeah.
Yes. You're sitting over there. There were these little short plants with leaves on them, and I guess they had some kind of little whatever. But I tell you, they reacted terrible
Oh
on
my
you
God,
if you try to
it's
use them for
unbelievable.
something like that. So, anyway, we laughed. We still laughed our cry. We were laughing our cry when he told me the whole story when I got out there. I don't know. You got to, if you take your life too serious,
That's right.
It's just a lot of fun to laugh at yourself.
Yeah, you can't
And laugh at your good friends.
Yeah, exactly.
Not with them, Adam.
That's right. That's right. You laugh at them.
Well, anyway, so we're talking about moments and lightning storms and my fear of lightning. And so we were coming down the river, and we were on the final run there before you get the double edge, and the storm just comes up out of nowhere over the mountain. And so we luckily these people see us scrambling to see what we're going to do, finding a place maybe on the shoreline. And they said, "Why don't you pull your canoes in and come up and see, and y'all can stay in our cabin during the storm." It was an older couple. And so we get in there, and of course my immediate notice was the guy had like a mandolin on the wall, and so it was always something you can talk interesting to people. The lady had been in banking at some point. Anyway, we get to eating, and the guys start showing us articles about the Chinese shooting the kids over there because they were playing with G.I. Joes or something, and they were believing all these stories like in what's the name?
National Enquirer.
National Enquirer.
They were all over
and
the
they
place.
were, and you're sitting in this house going, they really think the Chinese are shooting the kids for playing with G.I. Joes, and then we were kind of, please get this storm over with a little early, but they were nice, but
They were nice.
they were. I was just remember they believed all that stuff, man. That it was in the National Enquirer. We just had to hold our tongues not to laugh,
But it was a lifesaver at the time because, like I say, you had Daniel and I had Luke. Luke probably could have been more about 4 years old.
Yeah, hell yeah.
He was a little tight.
Well,
And,
the first place we tried to stop, somebody they said we couldn't come up because of the dog or whatever. They had a
Yeah.
pit bull that was-
Well, you got a good memory on that. I just remember the lunatics.
So we had to go a couple down before we got to
Yeah. I say it's interesting what you all remember different. The thing you remember what she did. I remember he was a bus driver in D.C.
Was he?
Yeah. I'm going so you probably see all kinds of loonies on.
Well, that
probably
whole
right.
thing when they were showing us pictures of the Chinese kids getting assassinated, shot in the head for playing with G.I. Joes, that was just way too much.
That was probably a shot from Vietnam War or something like
It was
that.
like bad Photoshop stuff with like Chinese soldiers in World War II.
Yeah.
People like executed.
Right.
In some
Yeah.
camp, but they like photoshopped in like kids, and it was Ninja Turtles. Just shooting kids.
Oh, is that what it was? They were shooting at Ninja Turtles. Okay,
Which, of course, at the time, Luke and I really loved Ninja Turtles. So
Say.
we were kind of like scared. Like, that happens in the world. We can get killed for this.
Yeah.
We love playing with Ninja Turtles.
But I'm just sitting there going, don't say anything about it. Okay, just leave it alone.
Blamed on the Shenandoah. It's so much Americana up here as well. Stanley and
The homecoming
Elkton.
every year.
Yeah, the flags are out and parades, and those parades are kind of a hoot, entertainment in themselves. And
Yeah.
cement trucks and they're all polished up, and the septic system. Companies got their trucks out there. And,
This morning, that girl, we don't know what she was trying to do to that mattress, this morning.
yes, that's
Yeah, we don't know what was going on there. Daniel might have filmed it, I don't know. Yeah, you come up here on 4th of July, it is American Flag City up here,
it's nice to see it though. Because you hear so much bad stuff in the news, and then you come and say, not everybody's like that. It's refreshing.
It is. I'd say I know one of the memories I have that we've done a couple of times is everybody around here is very much that way, but we went up on Skyline Drive, the overlooks, on 4th of July, and you'd look out over the valley, and people are shooting fireworks
Yeah.
and celebrating everywhere.
Right.
I mean, it isn't like, oh, there's a little over here, there's one person over there. It is all going on all through the valley that people are out shooting fireworks. And,
But the campground, when we first started coming, would have a yard sale out here. They'd set up a stage down here, and everybody'd make food. And I don't know who was with me one of those trips, but one of my most favorite memories of that was they were having everybody was eating down there. We were camping down that way that particular time. There used to be some sites down there. And so they had a guy up there singing, and he kind of was like a Waylon Jennings. He looked like him, and he's up there singing away. And this black lab that was there goes up right at the front of the stage and starts howling with him while he's singing. I mean, I just will never forget that as long as I live. That thing was howling. I mean, and that guy had to finally quit singing because the daggone black lab was howling the whole time.
He get more attention than he was.
Oh gosh! But it was a real commodity. The campground used to be people. It was a very much everybody knew everybody, and they would include you on about everything. And actually now, 4th of July, you'll probably see an ice cream guy comes through that campground and gives everybody homemade ice cream, which is kind of neat.
yeah, it is. They do. They don't usually have 4 or 5 flavors, and right through in their golf cart and giving everybody a cup of ice cream who wants it. So it's a lot of good people up here.
All right, Ed, share your favorite Pete Price story.
Pete Price?
Yeah, Stan's father.
Yeah. Probably that day we rented you had a VHS, right? Tape player?
Yeah.
Great big thing like a suitcase.
Yeah.
And of course, Mr. Price was quite chatty and older gentleman. And we were standing right over there, I believe. And Mr. Price, he would tell the story, go on and on and on. So anyway, Jimmy and Johnny and I were standing there like a little ark, listening to him. And Johnny had the tape rolling. And he was shooting Mr. Price, and I was sleeping. Mr. Price. So I think Johnny panned over. And anyway, that was kind of. I don't think Mr. Price saw me or didn't say anything.
Well, Mr. Price started the campground. His son Stan has it now, but when he passed away, we actually all came up here and went to his funeral. Wonderful man.
Yeah, great guy.
But
He was a
a
greeter at
talker.
Walmart
He was a
after he
great
retired.
talker. He was a great talker.
Yeah, he was a great guy.
Of course,
He told me he used to go out in the wintertime. They had a little wooden boat. This is back in the day. Had a wooden John boat. They put a pile of sand in it, and they'd launch it up there at Shenandoah. And they built a fire. I thought it would be a great idea to have a wooden boat and build a fire in the sand, which the fire would attract this carp. And they would gig carp and throw them in the boat. Gig carp, throw them in the boat. So it's so cold that carp would freeze solid at night sometime.
Yeah. And of course, we come up here for smallmouth bass and and that type of stuff. And all he ever talked about catching was crappie. Going to the lake and catching
Crappie.
Catching crappie. Like,
Yeah, he said he dumped like hundreds of them in this river, but we never caught any of them. They must not be meant to be living in a moving river like this. I don't know, but Mr. Price was really couldn't hear very well, but
Yeah.
but if you needed to scoop on something in town, he knew it.
he
I
knew
tell
it.
you.
He knew everybody.
Yeah.
I remember there was a fight down at the Stanley Homecoming parade one time. They had a big, and one of the characters, he came in, he just got out of prison, and that boy, he's trouble, and he knew all about the people involved in the fight, the local fight and stuff. But,
Are there any last things to wrap episode 1? Is So right about 40 minutes.
Well, all the three of us and the group that come here, I think we all enjoy simple pleasures of life. It's so much that's complicated these days, and it's nice to spend time all these years with people that enjoy the same things that I do, and we share with each other that we're not into a lot of technical stuff, except for our producer here. He's got all the gadgets. But the old folks here, we just really enjoy the simple things, and I know I'm very appreciative of that, of having friends like this. Sorry to be so boring about that.
No, that's been a big part of coming up here. Is just, yeah. Sometimes I feel like I don't. Like I say, to be honest with you, here we are, the three of us. Of course, I know it's been crazy circumstances, but it's the first time I've seen you guys in over 2 months because of the COVID thing.
Yeah.
But it's like, hey, we can't fish this weekend because the river's going to be. I don't care. I just want to see Ed and Johnny
Right,
and
me too.
get up and see these guys again. And this seems to be a place where we can congregate and catch up with each other.
Yeah.
And like I say, we've spent the last couple of days. And these are the exciting things we've done. We're talking to this camera. I mean, we really don't have to do anything. Just to be up here and spend time together. And I say again, it's in the Shenandoah Valley. It's beautiful scenery, and I love going down the river when you come up next to that mountain. It's just
different every time I come up here.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to finish the clip of it is, it's not only finding people that kind of enjoy the same things you do, and you don't have to, you can kind of be yourself, I think is one of the main things. But I always feel like when we hit that section, one section near the end, it goes up against the mountain. If that's what heaven's like, I can't wait to get there, because it's really like having a little piece of heaven up here. And it's just I don't know, there's just something about the whole thing. We've been riding up in the mountains yesterday and following the Cubs run. I mean, that is just, I don't know how you can think of anything more beautiful than all those little streams. So anyway, we just, if I left today, I would have felt like I had a complete life just because I got a chance to spend time up here. Is that good enough, Daniel?
Pretty poetic. Good way to wrap it up.
he tries to be the philosopher in the group.
Philosopher poet. That's how people often describe Johnny Jones.
See, unfortunately, I'm the one that's like, okay, guys, it's 11:15. What are we doing for lunch? Let's eat.
We finished?
Yes.
Thank you, Daniel.
That was cool. I'm glad y'all did that.
Yeah. Now, if you need to go to sleep one night, play this. You'll go right off.
I forgot to mention about the bug crawling in my ear last night. Oh well, to be continued.